Thank you. My name is Alan Ray. I work for Era Energy, and we are an oil and gas company out of California. Um, I hold two titles. The first title is Operational Technology Architect, and the other title, I am the supervisor over, I have the design and development team for all HMI, Enterprise Historian, and we set up last year the IIoT team that also reports to me. And so a little bit about Era. We were founded in 1997. We operate out of California. We have 5 different locations. We are jointly owned by Shell and ExxonMobil, and we're focused on safe and environmental operations. So today, what I want to talk to you guys about is really our journey as we start to progress towards an autonomous oil field. And we understand that this is an aspirational goal. It's nothing that we are even close to accomplishing at this point, but we have to come up with the framework needed to get us there. And so today I'm going to tell you the story on how we got from where we were last year with no structure to getting to the place where we're almost ready to start deploying solutions through our IIoT team. And so you can see by this chart that in the last 5 years, there has been a tremendous growth in IoT devices and technology. And I would say the growth that we've had in the last 2 years dwarfs the growth that we had from 2015 to 2018. And with that growth comes what? With that growth comes specifically shadow IT. Shadow IT is very fast, it's very convenient, it's very inexpensive, and along with that, it comes insecure. And shadow IT is those things that are happening within your company that are outside the IT organization, standards, structures, and policies. So, how does shadow IT happen? Shadow IT happens because you don't have power, you don't have communication, but you have a specialist, a supervisor, or even an operator who has a credit card. And he can go to a vendor and he can get that vendor to deploy a device that sits literally on the ground with a solar panel, a battery, and an edge device that will talk to a cloud service. That vendor will provide for that operations group a cloud service that will collect that data, create a dashboard, and put it right back to their phone and tablet. And typically they can get that done in a couple days. So you have a point solution, pressure, flow rate, temperature. You have no comm, you have no infrastructure. Talk to a vendor, purchase a solution with a credit card. They come out a couple days. You have success. And what does success lead to? More solutions being deployed, more shadow IT. And what is the result of shadow IT? And you can read this slide. It's confusing. I wouldn't recommend even taking a picture of it. But I had to go through the approval process, through our legal process in HR and PR, and it got in there, and I can't change it after it's approved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you the story of the result of shadow IT within our company. So about 5 years ago, we deployed about 4 different edge device units. They were LTE ready. They had I/O on them. And the company came out, and we were using MQTT because Arlen Nipper told us it's the thing to do. And so we were all in, and we deployed this thing. We set up a topic, and we started to publish this topic. It was not secure. It was just open. It was publishing to a cloud provider. We got the data moving. We felt like, okay, we kind of got it figured out. We created a second topic. We secured it. We used MQTT Secure, began to move data up to the cloud, but we made one extremely expensive mistake. Even though we were not using that open channel and topic that we had created, we didn't turn it off. A couple years go by, DoD finds out that there are known bad actors aggressively attacking 4 devices that are publishing our location and our name. 0 traffic on that device, yet you still had known bad actors that were attacking those devices. DoD makes a phone call to a very expensive cyber company. That cyber company makes a phone call and has a face-to-face with the CIO and the CEO. Now, it was a very expensive It was an opportunity. And we learned a lot from that opportunity, and we even were able to, the consultant that came in has been very impactful and very beneficial to our company. So it was a good lesson, but it was an expensive lesson. And so today, putting a device in our property that's not connected to the network, in the past, we didn't care. Today, we care tremendously. And so, how do we get from here, from an operator, a specialist, or operations group, using a credit card, going to a vendor, to here? Now, my company, we have done OT IT convergence. The entire OT team resides under IT. I work for the CIO. The IIoT team works for me, and so we are under the IT umbrella. But how do we get operations to come to us instead of going to that vendor? And so what I'm going to share with you is what we've been working on in 2019 to get us where we were, which was really nowhere, to where we are today. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to, let me get to it. We're going to have to understand our endpoints and what solutions they're providing. We're going to have to track and manage our devices. We are going to implement or need to implement a patching strategy. This is extremely important. When we're talking about access to devices that are connected to your equipment, who do you want to have access to that device? How are you going to manage access to the device? If you have 30 devices a day and you're going to go from 30 to 1,000, how are you going to manage 1,000? How are you going to manage 5,000? You're going to have to leverage the vendors to do that. But we cannot give vendors complete and total access to these devices. So we're going to have to work with Azure, AWS, and we're going to have to come up with a way that we can provide a token, a time token to our vendors so that when they need to update their firmware, we can control when they do that. So we have to have a strategy around that. We have to build a portfolio of devices. We need a strategy around the architecture and the design. And for us, we are going to use guardrails, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. Data quality. We've got to figure out how to build data quality in at the beginning. Build in tools and validations that when the data gets to our ERP systems, we know it's good. It will pay dividends over and over again if we do that. We need to control the passwords and the credentials. And we need to identify and recruit the company's change agents that are going to make a difference in the way that we implement and the way that we get ownership from operations. So I'm going to walk through a couple of things that we've done. There's software you can use for this. You can use an Excel spreadsheet. You can use a database. It doesn't matter. Use something. But you have to have an understanding of what your solutions are doing. So capture the solution name. What gap is that solution filling? How many units are you using to solve that solution? What are you doing with that device? Are you doing I/O? Are you doing real-time trending, alarming, solar? Do you have a battery on it? You need to be able to manage and track your end devices. So on your end devices, capture your serial number. Capture the device name. Get the description of what that device is. Who's the customer? Who are you going to call and contact if you got to do an upgrade or a firmware update on that device and you're going to bring it down? When was it ordered? When was it delivered? GPS, we're going to talk about this in a minute, but this is part of that guardrail. Every device that we deploy has to have GPS enabled. We have to know what that device is, and we have to know if the device got moved. We don't want a device that's located on our property that we don't know that it's there, it's online, it's functional, and it hasn't been moved. What is the current firmware? What chip is in that device? What year was it installed? What's the status? Is it in a pilot state? Is it online, in production? Is it offline? Failures. Track. Are you having battery issues? Are you having comm issues? Are you having dropouts? Track the failures so that you can come back and put your efforts in the and the solutions that need your effort. And then I already talked a little bit about patching, but patching is going to be a big thing. If we're going to do cybersecurity, what's the number one thing that we need to be focusing on? Firmware. We got to keep our devices up to date. How are we going to do that? And how are we going to do that without giving vendors complete and total access to these devices? Are you going to? We have 30 devices today. We have 2 solutions today that are in the pipeline that are dealing with our well sites. We have 10,000 wells. If we have one of those 2 solutions that can garnish about an $8,000 or $10,000 return in a year, and you multiply $8,000 times 10,000, that's a solution that's probably worth doing. But how are you going to manage 10,000 devices? You need to have a strategy in place for scalability. It's going to be very difficult. I have a team of 2 employees and 2 contractors, and we got 30 devices, and we see that scaling up very quickly. So we got to know how we're going to handle that. You need to have a portfolio built and an architectural design. The portfolio piece is this. We want to make sure that we're deploying the right device to the right solution. So we want to have a portfolio of devices. Look, there are a lot of devices. There's guys in garages making devices that will be disruption, will disrupt the industry. And a lot of us are going to want to take advantage of that. But how do we do it? How do we have all these different languages, all these different protocols, all these different things? You got to have a strategy around architecture. So for us, we're using inductive automation. They have a software called Ignition Edge. So we are going to leverage Ignition Edge for the purpose of managing the security, the way that we're going to connect to our endpoints, the way that we're going to deploy to these devices. They're all going to be the same. Now, this caused a problem for us. And the problem it caused was a couple years ago when we were thinking about this, Ignition Edge, when it came out, it was price point per device. We're talking a couple $1,000s per device. And I don't remember Travis can tell you what the price was back then. But anyway, there was a cost per device. Now, if I'm going to deploy 100, it's probably not an issue. If I'm going to deploy 1,000 or 5,000, well, that has just priced me out of the opportunity to use Ignition. So 2 years ago, I called Travis Cox with Inductive, and I said, hey, I wanted you to know that as I'm looking at this is where I want to go, but I don't think I can go there because your license is going to keep me from being able to use your software. And Travis Cox told me on the first time I called him, he said, Alan, the reason we have unlimited tags, the reason we have unlimited clients, the reason we give unlimited designers is because we never want to be the hindrance to you providing a solution. I said, well, I can tell you that this is going to be a hindrance. And so over the next 2 years, we worked on an enterprise license. And we successfully negotiated between each other, worked with them as a partner to come up with what an enterprise license would look like for us. And that has been instrumental in our guardrails that we're setting up to be able to have consistency on every single device that gets deployed. And it's going to be very important for us. Guardrails. So what am I talking about? We've been working on security reviews on how we pass data from an end device to IoT Hub, get through their stack to a relay back on-prem for the last probably 9 months. Now, if I have to take a solution back to security every single time I make a change or want another device, and I'm talking about walking through that, the difficulty of walking through that process, there's no way we're going to be an enabler to operations. So what we're doing is we're setting guardrails in place. And what we're saying is we have every single device has to be able to put our error certificate on it. Every device has to have GPS on it. Every device has to be able to be Ignition Edge ready. So we're going to have guardrails in place. The encryption has to be a certain way. The chip is going to be important. All these pieces. So as we vet an end device, We're going to ensure that it's within that guardrail. And if it's within that guardrail, we don't have to go back to security to get it approved. We're also doing the same thing with the cloud computing. How are we going to manage moving the data through the cloud? It's going to be very important because, as we all know, Azure, right, what they do today, next month, probably won't exist. So if I go get a security review on something that we're doing in Azure and it changes tomorrow, I got to go back to my security review. So we need guardrails in place that says, hey, as long as the encryption is this way, as long as these pieces are in place, I can move quickly. Because we need to be able to be an enabler to operations. It's the only way we're going to, that or we have to start firing people, and we are not a company that fires people. So that's what is happening with our strategies. Data quality. I talked a little bit about data quality. This is a big deal for us. We want to start putting the data quality at the beginning of the process. If you've ever done any data quality, read any of the books and stuff, they talk about it's like a river. And you can place data quality at the beginning of the lake where the water flows into it, or you can try to do data quality as you pull the water out of the lake. We don't want to do that. We want to put the data quality before the water even starts flowing in the river, because that is going to pay dividends for us all the way through the process. And so think about data quality as you begin to think about how you're going to configure this. How are you going to manage your validation of your data? Acquire and store master passwords. I talked about the two guys in the garage creating an edge device. That could be incredible for our company. If you buy a device and it has a root password and a user, you have got to get that. You have to store it away in a vault and you have to protect it, because if that company goes under and then you have a chip that you have to update, you've just turned that device into a brick. If you get the username and the password, at that point, now, if that company goes under or you lose the relationship with that company, you can take that username and password, you can hire another vendor, and you can ask them to start managing those devices at minimum. Or you can do it yourself, which we don't want to do. But identify and recruit your company's change agents. For us, this is going to be probably the most impactful thing that we do. We have people in our company that are forward-thinking, they're visionaries, they are trying to solve problems, and they're trying to do it as quickly as they can, and they see IT as a barrier, not an enabler. And so if we can get those people to come and work with us to help us break down these barriers so that we can become more of an enabler more quick. That's why the reason we're tracking when the edge device is bought and when it's deployed is because we want to benchmark. We want to be benching ourselves off of that. Because if we can be just as quick as a vendor, then we become an enabler. If we can get these people to believe that we can be that quick, and not only if we can be that quick, but the data that we're going to capture will go into our ERP systems. They'll go into our databases and our historians. It will be available for them in all of our processes, not just back to their phone. Be very impactful. As I was preparing this, our CIO gave me this quote. He said, "Alan, it's their choice. You can decide to allow organic development, and it will cost you, and it will create shadow IT. Or you can decide to enable controlled, integrated development. And as a company, we are making the decision that we are going to enable controlled, integrated development." With that, thank you very much.